You want to lead the lenders to the information that you want them to see. They're going to make assumptions. Nobody cares, at least not at this early stage. It's probably not a good fit. You probably shouldn't have sent it to that lender to begin with. We're talking about the borrower's business plan and strategy for this property. Hey guys, it's David. So in this presentation, I want to go over what information we need to send the lenders. Now, this is really essential to any kind of work that we're going to do. And I call this lead lenders to the trough, which really is like, think of a bunch of animals on a farm, and they're all hungry, they're all looking for food, and you kind of lead them, you kind of corral them right into the food bin, into the trough, and that there's nowhere else for them to go. You direct the animals where you want them to go. Now, I've got to be careful here. I'm not calling lenders a bunch of animals. Don't get that wrong. That's not at all what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that you want to lead the lenders to the information that you want them to see. If you don't tell the lenders about your deal, or if you tell them only a little bit, they're going to make assumptions. They're going to go looking for other information, and it may or may not be correct. We don't want the lenders to have to think. We want to tell them exactly the information that we want them to hear, and it needs to be the information that the lenders need to hear. There's a fine line here between telling the lenders truth and not truth. We only want to tell the lenders truth. Everything comes out during due diligence. There's absolutely no reason to mislead, to misdirect, to not be 100% accurate and true to the best of your ability. Absolutely none. It all comes out, I promise you. And a lot of times you'll think they didn't realize something, and they do realize something, and you've just wasted 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks on a job. Don't do it. But with that being said, we need to give the lenders a certain type of information, no more and no less. And what I mean by that is, at our experience on Starport, and again, I think we're over 1,500, approaching 2,000 different transactions that have come through Starport. We see different information come from the borrowers and the brokers all around the country. And we tell them specifically, we give them a document on Starport. We give you a document that teaches you exactly what kind of information you should provide to the lenders, and people still don't provide it. I've seen, borrowers submit or brokers submit to us entire resumes and business plan for the borrowing entity for the next 10 years. Nobody cares, at least not at this early stage. They need to know primarily, mostly about these particular elements and nothing else. Don't overload the lenders. Lead them to the trough with the information that you want them to look at and you want them to be thinking about. They may question that information. They may get secondary sources. That's fine. But you want to be the first one out of the gate with the information that you want them to see. Enough said about that. Let's look at this. So basically 4, really 5 different categories. They need to know about the property, about the borrower, about the market location. They need to know what the loan request is. What are you looking for? And they need certain documents to back all of this up initially. This is what I would consider an initial document list. It will vary depending on some different characteristics of the property, which we'll talk about. But this is not to be confused with your due diligence document list, which will be 30, 40 items to be listed. Here, we're just talking about the basics. Everything here is designed to help us get a real good, solid, accurate quote from the lender. It'll probably still be a soft quote, but if you give them this much information, that's a soft quote, maybe even a firm quote that they can go to application with. So let's dive in. Let's start with property. Again, much of this you already know. I'm just putting it on paper in front of you so we have it in one organized way. They need to know the property type, right? Multifamily, commercial, retail, and with all those, what other styles? It's multifamily, garden style. It's a retail, big box center. Whatever it is, they need to know about that. They want to know the condition of the property. Is it been well maintained? Does it have a lot of deferred maintenance? It's going to be a lot of renovation work. Deferred maintenance would also be an indication of how the prior or current property owner dealt with this property. If there's a lot of deferred maintenance, it opens up a whole can of worms. Well, that's just what we know about. What else did that borrower or that seller not take care of that we just don't realize yet? So condition of the property is very important. Recent renovations. Last year, the property was built 20 years ago, but last year they made a $5,000 unit renovation to the property. That's actually why we're buying it. It's fully renovated, and we're ready to just raise the rents and improve management. But whatever the story is with recent renovations, and of course the size of the property. For a multifamily, number of units. Retail might be a square foot. Office property might be the number of floors or the number of offices. the buildable space, the build out space. For hotels, it's going to be the number of keys or beds, et cetera, et cetera. They need to know the size of the property. And that gives them a pretty good indication of kind of, is this an asset type that they like to invest in or lend on or not. I might put age in here. The only reason I'm not putting age, because it's kind of subsumed in condition. They know by the moment you tell, really, age is just telling them about the condition of the property. But, I'll leave age in there because, listen, some lenders just have a cutoff. We don't invest or we don't lend on properties, older than 30, 40, 50 years old. It could be like that. So let's put age in there as well. Let's talk about the borrower. If you've watched some of the other videos that I've talked about or that I have posted, we've talked a lot about the borrower and the difference in residential real estate and really 1 to 4 multifamily, which a lot of those properties are recourse, which means the lender is going to look to the borrower and look to the borrower's ability to repay the mortgage, versus commercial properties, which are generally non-recourse and in which, therefore, the lenders are looking much more towards the property to repay the mortgage, and it's non-recourse to the borrower. So if most commercial properties that we're going to talk about are non-recourse to the borrower, then why does the lender still care about the borrower at all? It's a fair question. And I would say it like this. They do, but to a limited degree. They clearly want to know about, and look at what I'm writing here. The first line item I have is the borrower's experience with similar projects. If the borrower has been, been in the hotel business and now he's buying a multifamily property, that's not as relevant or as important or as valid for this particular project as if he's buying multifamily. We want to know his experience with owning and operating multifamily. Really important. If this is a construction project, it's nice that he's owned 5 other properties, but if those were all stabilized assets, that doesn't give me a lot of confidence that he knows how to go about building from the ground up. So we might want him to bring in a partner. So his experience with similar projects is what's important. Now, if he doesn't have experience with similar projects, you're going to have to answer this the best that you can, but be honest and open. And the way to go about that would be pretty much what I just said. He's owned 8 different multifamily properties. Now he wants to build a multifamily property from ground up because he wants to make the property, he's learned what works and what doesn't work, and he wants to build it, correctly in a more proper way from the beginning. Great. That sounds great. But he doesn't have any experience. So you know how we counter that? He's going to bring in a partner that does have construction experience, or he is building in a GC, a builder who has tremendous amount of experience in that and can satisfy any requirements that you have. All that shows that the borrower is aware of the fact that he might not have enough experience and that he's already adjusting for that. That's just giving the lender an indication of the quality and the type of borrower they're dealing with. And that's a lot of what you're doing here. You're just giving the story, and even if the answers aren't all perfect, they're letting the lender know whether this borrower has thought things through. Next would be the financial strength and the credit. So it's less important than it would be on residential, but still certainly very important. They want to know that this borrower has the financial strength to carry this property if there were any problems, if it needs some additional cash, that this borrower has the ability for that. And again, even with the credit, it's just also an indication of the quality of this borrower. If they don't pay their bills and they have bad credit, that's obviously a red flag. It's a red flag in traditional primary residential. It's a red flag here as well, but more so not related to paying a mortgage because the property is going to pay the mortgage, more so in just being able to manage finances effectively. Organization, what I'm talking about here is, are they a mom and pop organization, or do they have a staff? They have acquisitions professionals and property management on staff. They maybe have asset management on staff. What kind of organization do they have? That's important as well. And then REO stands for real estate owned. This will be one of the documents that we need. You'll see it over here as an REO, but related to the borrower, it's just tying into the experience. What other properties do they own and operate, or have they completed and sold in the past? We want to just be able to talk about all that with the borrower. You'll see here, I'm not really looking at, are they employed? I'm not really looking at their, their debt to income ratios. I'm not tying all that in here because it's less important. I'm not saying it's not important. Hear that again. I'm not saying that it's not important. It's just less important because they're looking more for the quality of the borrower and their experience and my confidence in their ability to carry out this business plan than I am in their ability to pay the mortgage themselves, because they're not paying the mortgage, the property's paying the mortgage. Let's look at the market and the location. So we looked at the property, and this is kind of the corollary to that. Again, this town are looking for size, but not of the property, but of the city or the town that they're in, or is this a rural property? It's in a rural location. So they want to have an indication of where this property is located. Access to transportation. This has become very popular in the last few years where, it's been a hot point because as larger and more cities have more and more traffic issues, then it's become really important that properties that are situated near access to transportation have performed better. So that's why that becomes important. Is the area improving or declining? First of all, it just makes a lot of sense, right? Is this a neighborhood, a section of the city that has been improving? There's new developments going in, there's new employment coming in, there's new lifestyle retail centers, new apartment properties or new restaurants are coming in. That's all a good feeling. If the property's going the other direction, then that's a concern. And if you're going to be holding this property for 3, 5, 7, 10 years, then you're concerned not just where the property is or the location is right now, but where's it going to go during the hold period? And how is this property going to get caught up in that? Because you're telling me that the NOI right now is solid and stable, but if we see signs of a declining area or declining neighborhood around this, I might have some concerns that either the NOI won't be maintained, or your business plans and your story about how you're going to improve and increase the NOI might not be able to come to fruition as much as you're telling us. So improving a declining neighborhood is important. And I wrote down lifestyle, which really is just what's it like to be in this area? Does it have schools? If you're a multifamily, one of the leading indicators of a good, solid multifamily property is the school system, right? Parents, it's very often families, either single moms or dads, or young starter families with 1 or 2 kids. They want to know it's a good school district, certainly the elementary school. But if you have two bedroom or a lot of 3 bedroom units, 3 bedrooms indicates a lot of children. That's an indication that the high schools are going to be important. So schools become very relevant. Retail and access to work and employment opportunities within half an hour. What kind of work what's the employment universe look like around there? Within 15 minutes, what's the retail look like? Et cetera, et cetera. All this comes into getting a picture for what the market location is going to look like. Now, the lenders very often, especially the larger lenders, more established lenders, have access to detailed reports on any zip code they give you. So you're going to tell them what you want to tell them, but they're going to be able to drill down and get actual cold, hard facts. But it's important to give them the information that you want to tell them because there could be something in your particular neighborhood, the particular corner where this property or this retail center or this restaurant or this office building is going. There's a reason why that particular corner in that particular section of town is is strong and why the owner's buying there. And that might not be identified or realized in just the cold hard data that the lender's going to be able to download from whatever data source they have. So don't, and that's the same about the property. They can look up almost any property in the country, probably in the data sources they have. But again, the two of these, it's really important. Put forth the information in the story that you want the lenders to know. They'll check it themselves, but at least you can be aware of what they're going to find out, be aware of what you want them to know, and you might already know that they're going to find out that the overall, the area itself is declining. But this particular street is really strong, and here's why. So that's about market and location. And finally, or next to last, would be the loan request itself. Almost goes without saying that you should tell the lender what you're looking for. You'd be surprised how many times this gets left out. If the lenders don't know, the lenders need to guess. Don't make them guess. How much of a loan are you looking for? You want to maximize proceeds. That's great, but you should probably also tell them the range of what you're looking for. Because if they can't meet anything near that number, for example, if you're looking for $3.5 million, but this lender's max loan amount is $3 million, it's probably not a good fit. You probably shouldn't have sent it to that lender to begin with, but the fact that you did, let them know right up front it's not a good fit. LTV and LTC, similar, right? If their max LTVs are 75%, but your borrower is expecting an 85% loan, it's non-starter. Now you might have flexibility, and if you do, you should indicate it here. So let me bring up another point. And we learned this from our operating at Starport. Very often, lenders are very rigid. They don't mean to be, they just don't know any better. What I mean by that is that you put in your loan request And the lender says, "Up, we don't go. You want a 75% loan? We don't go above 73." Well, wait a minute. My borrower could be flexible and make some adjustments and get to a 73. Oh, I didn't know that. Often the lenders don't even ask. They're just so busy reviewing deals, and deals come to them in all different shapes and sizes. Very few have all the information that they need. So the lenders have to be like detectives. They get a package in the door. They don't even get a package. They get a bunch of bullet points in an email, and they get 50 of these a week, a month, and they've got to try to figure that all out. It's hard. It's time consuming. It's tiring. It's monotonous. Very often the lenders just don't have time to respond back to you. So I say give a range. If you're open to 70 to 75% LTV, let them know that. Let them know that you have some flexibility in these terms. It's a loan request, it's not law. By the way, if it is law, if you absolutely must have a particular figure, let them know that too. No flexibility here, flexibility over here. But it's really important. Don't expect that the lender's going to come back to you in a conversation with a counter or discussion. They might not. Some lenders will, and that's where the relationship that you have with that lender, or better yet, with that lender, we need to narrow down what I mean. Do you know Bank of America? No. You know Bob Smith at Bank of America in the Atlanta, Georgia office. You know a human being, and you need to know how that human being functions and operates and what's he like. Is he the kind of person that will come back to you and have ask questions and enter into a discussion, or is he much more black and white? You just know that up front. So that's where knowing that lender relationship is really important. And those human characteristics are embedded throughout this entire process. Form the relationship, strengthen the relationships, get off the email, pick up the phone, schedule a meeting. Don't just go back and forth on email all day long, or let alone SMS message or WhatsApp nowadays. Get on a call, try to get not face to face, but try to get video to video. Make it more personable. It can always help. Um, I'm going to continue down this list off my tangent. B plan and strategy. What is the borrower planning to do with the property? Now, we touched a little bit on this up here, whether it is, what's the style of property. But what I mean here, is it construction? Is it renovation? Is it a repositioning? Is it just stabilized? Think of if you have watched some of the other videos, I talk about core plus, value add. Think of that here. Let them know. And don't just tell them, it's a purchase. Add some color commentary to that. Well, it's going to purchase. What are they doing to the property? Why are they purchasing this? Why this property? Why at this time? There's usually a story that's involved on almost every investment. Let them know a little bit about that. You don't have to let them know everything. You don't have to upload your business plan at this time because it's too much information. Again, you want to tell the lenders exactly what you want them to know. So take out of the business plan, if they have a business plan for this property. And let me be clear here. When I say business plan, I don't mean the borrower's company business plan of how they're going to grow their business and build their portfolio and conquer the world. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the borrower's business plan and strategy for this property. That's what we're talking about. Really important. Really, really important. And again, just take an excerpt. What are they going to do to the property? Why? How are they going to make money? That's what they care about. Leading into, and it should be in here, what's the exit strategy? You're going into the property, how are you getting out of the deal? How are you going to repay the loan? That's what they want to know. 3, 5, 7, 10-year loan, whatever it might be. How are they getting out? Are you planning to refinance? Or are you planning to sell? Or something else in between completely? Whatever it might be, let them know and show them in numbers how this deal makes a lot of sense, because on the end of this 5-year loan term, we fully expect very confidently that the NOI is going to increase by 28%, and that's going to give us, on a conservative cap rate analysis, a $800,000 gain, and at 75% LTV, we absolutely expect to be able to refinance out of this loan. I did that off the top of my head. I'm making it up, but you need to be able to tell that story and understand why you're telling the story. So, if that was more complicated for you, if you don't think you can do that as quickly as I just did, then you should go down into the bottom into the links and click on joining or learning more about the Starport Academy, because we're going to teach you how to do all that. We're going to show you all the terms, all the understanding of commercial real estate, and it's custom made for people who already know a little bit of commercial real estate, i.e., a residential loan officer who is expanding into commercial, or somebody who is just starting out in commercial, who has a few years under their belt, but you want to get more education and more training, that's what the academy is for. And you need to be able to do all this off the top of your head very quickly. And then finally, the NOI and the cap rate. What I mean here is, again, kind of continuing the narrative. You want me to say this property going in is, has $125,000 of NOI. We're buying it at a 7.2 cap rate. That's a $1.7 million purchase price, which we think is very, is right in line with the comps in this market area based on our analysis. Whatever you want to say, however you want to tell that story, it just needs to be in there so that they can understand very quickly and they don't have to go looking for it. Don't make them go into the documents, your trailing 12 or your rent roll, to try to figure out the NOI. Tell them what the NOI is that you want them to see. You're going to have to provide, I didn't put it here, you're going to have to provide some kind of what I would call initial day one underwriting, not the lender's underwriting, your underwriting or the borrower's underwriting. Tell them what you want them to see. Show them the income and the expenses on day one as you wanted to see. I would also show them year one and maybe even pro forma, like 3 years out and 5 years out, is what I would show them. So you can define this and support this and have all your footnotes to your spreadsheet and why you think that's the NOI on day one. We said there's $125,000 of NOI. How did you get there? What adjustments did you make to the historical numbers that the seller gave you that allowed you to get to that number? Tell the story and be able to support it. You might be right, you might be wrong, the lender might argue with you, but at least you have a starting position to have something to talk about. So great. Finally, let's cover the documents. So every lender is going to be a little bit different, but if you at least have this kind of a basic list available for a purchase, that would be a P&S stands for the purchase and sale agreement. What's the contract with the seller? So that first of all, it's going to show the stage of the deal. If you're just shopping the deal, that's one thing. But if you have it under contract, then you'd have a P&S agreement. And that gives the lender a little more confidence or interest in working and spending time on this particular quote because you already have a P&S agreement. You're already talking something that's tangible and real. If you're just shopping and prospecting, the lender doesn't want to spend nearly as much time because it doesn't exist yet. It's not really a deal yet. The REO, real estate owned, again, it's just an indication. It's two things really. It's an indication of the borrower's experience, hopefully with similar types of projects. But if not, then all of these real estate experience combined. But it's also, lenders are also going to want to drill down and say, what is your financial responsibilities on the other properties that you own, including your home, if you own your home, or including the borrower's home, if they own their home. They're going to often look at total purchase price, total mortgage, total equity involved, remaining mortgage balance, to kind of get a feeling for kind of what are your other mortgage requirements and payment requirements across your other assets. PFS, the borrower's personal financial statement. He should already have this. If he doesn't, you may as well tell him up front during the initial conversations to get in touch with his accountant and begin preparing this. It's likely going to be asked for. If not up front here, then certainly during due diligence, very early on in due diligence. Sometimes wealthy people, or anybody for that matter, doesn't want to give out their personal financial statement to lenders when they're just in the beginning stages. I completely understand that. I don't like to give mine out, but they should at least get it prepared because sometimes those accountants are busy, especially if they're during tax season for individuals or tax season for corporations, which is later in the year. So just let them know they should begin getting this prepared. If they don't have an REO, it could take them a little bit of time to get the REO together. T12, this is your trailing 12 financial statement. So I want to see a full year of operating income and operating expenses off the property. I'd like it to be a T12 because no matter what time of year we're in right now, I get to see the entire cycle, the most recent entire cycle. Let's say it's August and I don't have a T12, but I have an end of year from last year. Well, that's great, but I'm already, 9, 10 months into the current year. I don't have any data on that. I'd rather see the trailing 12 or even the trailing 6 and then the full year. So what I would try to get from the seller, and you should say this to your borrower, go back to the seller, get the past 2 to 3 years of full year financial statements. I'm not necessarily looking for tax returns on the property. Those are not as helpful right now. I'm really just looking for the owner's P&L statement, which he should be able to plop out from his bookkeeper or from his accounting program, QuickBooks or whatever he uses. He should be able to get you a detailed month by month. You don't want the annualized numbers. You want a month by month statement from last year 2 years ago, and the most recent trailing 12. Rent roll. You want the most recent month rent roll. If you can get a few months in a row, last 3 months rent roll, great. You don't want 6 months ago rent roll because you want to know what the property's doing right here and right now. And ideally, you should be able to back into the NOI. If you're saying that there's this much NOI coming off the property, you should be able to show, therefore, the revenues and your expenses, because your expenses will fluctuate less than your revenues usually, and you should be able to back into and get pretty close to the NOI number that you are telling the lender you have. So that's what this is all about. You're telling the lender certain information about the property. You're going to provide to that lender an underwriting that you've made on the property that boils down to what NOI you have right now. And the lender wants these documents to try to back into those numbers and agree with you or disagree with you. Same thing with the appraisal, right? We're all going to wait for the appraisal to come. But if you've done your job well, the appraisal should be pretty close to your numbers. And therefore, there's not going to be any surprises with the appraisal. So that's a full lender package. And again, the goal here is to feed the information to the lenders. Literally, I think of it like that. You're feeding the information, you're feeding the story to the lenders that you want them to hear. It's all factual. It's all based on your reasoning and your support and your documentation. And you should be able to stand up and support and testify is what the word I'm thinking about, and testify to any fact that you put up here and have supporting information for it. Otherwise, don't put it in here. If you can't support it, don't put it in here because it'll just create problems later on. If you can put all this information together and put in a clear, concise, well-organized package, either you're going to do it or your borrower is going to do it. You can help your borrower do it. I would advise that you let the borrower give you the first stab at the document and then you clean it up. But if not, you can put this together. I wouldn't use AI to do this. So let me explain how I would use AI here. I might write all this out, or I might dictate all of this out. And I might start by just saying on a voice memo, property. And I'd go down each of these: property type, property condition. I'd go down borrower. I'd go down each of these sections. I might either dictate that or type that all out. And then I might give it to the AI and say, clean and organize this and make this into a presentation. And that'll save you a lot of time. So you don't have to wordsmith it. You don't have to worry about cleaning it up. Just get the raw information out there. Let the AI clean all that up. And that'll probably save you several hours. It doesn't need to be beautiful. The lender's not looking for, a professional $20,000 presentation. What I would suggest that I've left out here is probably the most important thing, which would be pictures. Get some clean pictures, if not a video. There's no excuse not to get a video of the property. Stand in front of the property with the video camera, you or the borrower, walk around the property, take a picture of the neighborhood and the street and the ingress and the egress, depending on the kind of property it is. I'd walk all the way around the property and show them. I'd go inside the property and give them a bit of a property tour. If you're not going to do a video, then at least take pictures. Start on the kind of in front of the property and just take a picture. If it's a big property, stand back a couple, maybe 100 yards and get the whole image. I would take the neighborhood in the street as well. Get the backyard, not the backyard, right, but get around the property so they can really get a good picture for it. Pictures really are important. It just makes it come alive. They can go to Google and do the little man that you pull down and take a look at from the street, but take your own pictures and put them in this presentation right in the front. Name of the property, address of the property, borrower, you, and a picture of the property. Front elevation, great on a sunny day. Don't get me on a cloudy, dark, dreary day. Clear blue sky as much as you can or edit it out. And sun is shining and a good, clear picture. No excuse now with all the phones that we have and the amazing cameras that these phones have. And I was going to say include a map. You might want to include a map. Doesn't hurt, but obviously nowadays with Google or whatever the map program you have, they can get whatever maps they need. But I always start my presentations with exactly what I just said. Cover page has a picture of the names of the property and the address. The first interior page might have a table of contents if it ends up being a couple pages, but it's certainly going to be pictures at first with a map. And I might do a larger area map to see kind of the whole where this property is sitting within the larger town and or city or state. And then I might drill down to the more immediate neighborhood to show kind of how this property is situated on the grounds. So Hope that helps. This is a really strong beginning. If you can present the information to the lenders, let me tell you one more thing before I let you go. When you present information like this, clean, concise to the lenders, it says a lot about you and therefore about the borrower. They don't know whether you put this package together or the borrower did. Let's think about it if you put it together. Think of your relationship with this lender, because you're going to want to come back to this lender with other deals. Hopefully, you're doing 5, 10 deals a month. And you're going to come back to this lender, hopefully, over and over and over again. They're going to get to know you and the work that you do and the diligence that you do and how detail oriented you are. And they're going to gain a lot of respect for the professional that you are in the industry. And they're going to begin, when your package comes in, you're going to say, oh, Dave just sent me a package. I know this package is going to be complete, organized, have the information that I need, and nothing else, no fluff, just true, accurate information. Let me look at this package first. I'm pretending like back in the day, we used to say it's top of the stack, right? It used to be when I started my career, you had PDFs and you might mail it to somebody. Email was just starting and you print it out and you would have a stack of deals on your desk, or you might overnight package it to somebody, especially if you had pictures. You might, have pictures that you printed. You had to go still print pictures out. And there'd be a stack of deals on the lender's desk, and you wanted to be top of that stack. You wanted to be when that lender comes into the office, they take your deal first and review it and contact you. And I still say the same thing. When they see it in their inbox, or if you use one of the marketplaces, when they get an email from the marketplace, whatever it is, and they see your name on it. And this is why it's so important that you own the lender relationship and be, the marketplace has kind of diminished the value of your relationship. But it's really great that you know the lender knows you, and the lender knows this is your work and this is what you do. They're going to want to look at your deal. They're going to want to speak to you because they know you've got your act together and you're saving them time and effort. Basically, you're making their jobs in life easier. They're just like you. They're going to get paid probably on the closing of the loan. So they get 100 loans in the door, and they're only going to fund a handful, if maybe just one that month, from this particular loan officer. He wants to get paid on that. He doesn't want to waste time in the other 99. So if you're helping him increase the certainty of closing. So on this particular deal, which makes everybody money, it's going to make you money, it's going to make him money. And unfortunately, or fortunately, everything is still driven by money. We're all in this real estate game to make a living, to support our families, and go out there and have the lives that we all want to live. So it's incredibly important that you save the lenders the hassle, because they're used to it from everybody. They're used to all the BS, all the hassle, all the wasted time on deals that are just not relevant, or presentations that are misleading and incomplete. They don't want to deal with that. You can dramatically increase your chances of getting a deal closed just by making a great presentation to lenders. That's it. See you in the next video.